In 1805, Napoleon Bonaparte founded the Napoleonic state of Kingdom of Italy, creating a pattern of key political figures that ultimately shaped the nation's identity and modern history. Today, we would like to focus on the period between the 1860s and Italy's mobilization into the Second World War, and how certain political figures and ideologies can be identified as the foundation for Italy's modern history. Francesco Crispi, Giovanni Giolitti, and Benito Mussolini were all men who, in their different ways, through faith in an ideal social justice, had striven to tackle the fundamental problem of what is Italy's national identity. This is something we'd like to explore with you today.
Let's first start with Francesco Crispi. Francesco Crispi was born in Sicily in 1819 and was a lawyer by trade. He planned and led the Sicily Uprising in 1849, which kick-started a series of revolutions that culminated in the unification of Italy in 1861. He was a dominant political leader in the late 19th century Italy and served 2 terms as Prime Minister from 1887 to 1891 and 1893 to 1896. Originally an enlightened Italian patriot and Democrat liberal, he went on to become a bellicose authoritarian prime minister, an ally and admirer of Bismarck. As a former disciple and good friend of Mazzini, who was a strong proponent in republicanism, who had fought with Garibaldi in Sicily, he, more than anyone else, felt that the glorious nation of which he had dreamed in 1860 had been betrayed with pettiness and corruption. The Italian monarchy struggled between 1860 and 1922 to establish itself as a strong and unifying national symbol. Despite the efforts of countless politicians and propagandists who worked to inject the Savoy dynasty with an air of legitimacy, recognizing that charismatic leadership offered the best hope of binding the masses to the state. Francesco Crispi, in 1864, famously voiced the view that the monarchy unites and the republic would divide us, and it was widely shared among the national elites, principally on the grounds that the Italian masses were too immature still and too conditioned by their history to accept a kingless state. Francesco Crispi formed a totalitarian and authoritative government. He increased militarization of the country and performed excessive warmongering. Crispi's energetic reform program and warmongering arose from a belief that Italians had failed since 1860 to develop a sense of loyalty to the country's institution and to think in national terms. His reign was widely known as the blackest years of the Italian economy. Crispi was partly to blame for it. He did not have time for the economy. He regarded Italy's problems as more moral than material in character, and his belligerent foreign policy raised the specter of war and undermined business confidence. Investment in industry, which had been so vital to the boom of the early 1880s, dried up, while the tariff war with France, provoked by Crispi for largely political reasons, resulted in a dramatic slump in exports. His main focus was in foreign affairs. Crispi claimed that France was incorrigibly hostile to Italy for historical and geopolitical reasons, and because of Italy's dispute with the Vatican, and would seek any pretext to attack. However, this was mainly a projection of his own aggressive ambitions. He believed that Italy could only achieve its full potential as a nation at the expense of France. Both countries were natural rivals in the Mediterranean, and as long as France, with its great military and revolutionary tradition, could lord it morally over Italy, Italians could never develop a sense of their own worth, according to Crispi.
He was an Italian statesman who was the prime minister 5 times during 1892 to 1921. He is also the second longest prime minister in Italian history after Benito Mussolini. In his career of being prime minister, especially between 1901 to 1914, was regarded as a Giolittian period. During the Giolittian era, there were still lots of strikes launched by workers. Central to Giolitti's strategy was the government's neutrality in labor disputes, which is totally different than before, for the police and army had in the past been extensively used to dissolve strikes and intimidate workers. In Giolitti's opinion, the government had to act as mediator between entrepreneurs and workers. Giolitti did not confine his goodwill towards the working classes simply to non-intervention in strikes. He introduced a new law to restrict children of age 12 from working and women from working over 12 hours a day in 1902. In addition, in order to guarantee workers to rest, a policy for workers to take a rest at least once a week was established in 1907. Giolitti once said that keeping wages down might serve the interests of the industrials, but it could not be in the interest of the state. It is unjust, and even more than that, an economic and a political mistake. We all know that Giolitti's policy is to be neutral in labor strikes. Therefore, while Mussolini developed fascism and party, instead of forbidding, Giolitti encouraged them to develop at the beginning. The fact caused that Mussolini's influence on Italia's sociality increased as time goes, which eventually causes Italy and Germany to launch the World War II.
Benito Mussolini was infamous for many things and a very key player in regards to both Italy's modern national identity and its history. He was born in Romana in 1883, the very place that endured the violent revolution during the time of Andrea Costa's reign. He was a great orator who used his past skills in journalism to formulate propaganda that ultimately encouraged and seduced the population to admire him. The very bombastic wording he created in his journalism was soon undoubtedly present in his many speeches. Many have claimed that Benito was the modern Julius Caesar at the time of his uprising. He supported Italy's involvement and mobilization in the First World War by seeing it as an opportunity to revolt against liberal Italy and its narrow capitalist system. This support caused him to be denounced from the Socialist Party and lose his editorship of the newspaper Avanti. The losses, however, caused him to take a new nationalist approach to politics and start a newspaper called the Popolo d'Italia, advocating for militarism and becoming the foundation for the fascist movement and its rise to power. He successfully established a totalitarian regime in Italy in the 1920s. Italy's involvement in the First World War led to a significant military loss. Italy's victory at Vittorio Veneto was ultimately undone by its casualty loss in the Battle of Capiotto in October 1917. The result of the loss in the war caused frequent labour strikes, food shortages, inflation, and a very low standard of living. This dissatisfaction of the people was exactly what Mussolini played on to create his regime. These became a source of support for revolutionary change. The war and the conjuncture of historical and political events led up to the opportunity for Mussolini to become the key figure he had been planning to become for over a decade. In 1920, Mussolini did not win a single vote, not even in his hometown in Romana. This caused him to drop many left-wing aspects to his fascist party, with many associating it with the threat of the Socialist Party that had risen again during Giolitti's reign. Instead, his political agenda became very right-wing, growing in support due to something that was even beyond Mussolini's control. He made most of the foundations of his party based on a recombination of both left and right ideologies. As a result, Mussolini aligned his fascist movement with the nationalists and was seen by the public as an ideal movement to address the threat of communism. He came into office in the year 1922 after a military coup against liberal Italy, which became known as the March of Rome. He remained in power until he was disposed by the king during 1943 during the Second World War. On the 3rd of January 1925, Mussolini made a pivotal speech that highlighted the significant moment of change in Italian politics. It highlighted the end of liberalism and the beginning of fascist dictatorship. It was later on that year that an infamous law passed on Christmas Eve 1925, changing Mussolini's formal title from President of the Council of Ministers to Head of the Government. This meant that he was no longer responsible to Parliament and can only be removed through the power by the King. This law made Mussolini the only person competent to determine the body's agenda. Local autonomy was ultimately abolished, and Italy fell into the undeniable hands of a dictatorship. Many historians claim that in such a sense Hitler idolized Mussolini and his accomplishments. Like Adolf Hitler, his fascist movement embodied a political religion which formed a new generational population. This became the basis of Italy's cultural renaissance by spiritually forming a generation whose lives demonstrate the transcendent ethical principles of the state, thus enabling the new Italy to fulfill its civilizing mission on behalf of humankind and to formulate a model of masculinity. The generation of the new man saw Mussolini quickly become the centre of what was ultimately a personality cult, something transforming Italy's nationalism once again. Crispi, Giolitti and Mussolini each founded their own versions of Italy's national identity, creating a political pattern that dates from the end of the 19th century to Mussolini's fall in 1943. Italy's nationalism, according to fascist politicians such as Giovanni Gentile, was to become the project for making a culture, the consciousness, and the politics of the nation adequate to the new social reality created by industrialization and modernization, highlighting the influence that politics had over Italy's developing national identity. Each politician addressed in this video explored their own versions of this and helped us explore the theory that Italy's politics and the activism of key political players adapted not only Italy's modern national identity and history, but as a result influenced the modern history in Europe itself. We thank you for listening and we hope you enjoyed learning about Italy.